We're looking at chapter 6 of our text, which deals with organizing and outlining your speech. The chapter is divided into 4 sections: the importance of organizing a speech, organizing the body of your speech, creating unity through connection, and then constructing an outline and speaker notes. So let's dive right into it. A good speech flows. There's movement in the presentation from the beginning to the end, and the audience can sense that movement, that progression. A good speech also consists of a clear introduction that introduces the body and the body itself, where your main points are, and then your conclusion that kind of reviews, that looks back at your body in terms of a summary fashion. Your listeners should be able to identify these parts of your presentation. So if you spend time at the beginning of the process outlining your ideas, you will discover whether there are any gaps or deficiencies in your research, or whether you have too much or too little information, or where you haven't made a logical connection between the main points, or where maybe you don't have sufficient supporting material. So the organization of ideas refers to placing lines of reasoning and supporting materials in a pattern that helps the audience assimilate the information, that also helps you achieve your general and specific purpose by supporting your thesis. So the introduction and conclusion support the body from different ends. The introduction should support the body of your speech, and it should capture your audience's attention and indicate your intent. There are 5 functions to the introduction, and we've gone over that already. The conclusion supports the body of your speech, and there are 4 functions to it. It reinforces your message, and it brings your message to a close. It provides closure, and there's a final memorable ending that wraps the presentation up. The body now is the bulk of your presentation. This is where your main points are, and this is where you have your supporting material that reinforces each main point, and everything works together to achieve your specific purpose and your general purpose for this particular audience. So your general purpose, as we've said, is either to inform, to persuade, to entertain, or inspire. Your specific purpose is the precise response that you want from your audience. What do you want them to do? The best way to remember what the specific purpose is and to do it well is to begin with the primer, the initial phrase, the audience will. What do you want the audience to do? And you create your presentation in light of your general purpose, your specific purpose, and your audience. Your thesis statement refers to your speech boiled down to one sentence. It's your core idea. It's your central idea. It identifies exactly what you want to talk about in one sentence. So there's a good example in the textbook. You can look at it, and I've got it on the PowerPoint as well. So how do you go about the process of organizing your speech? The first thing you've got to do is select your main points. How do you do so? Probably one of the best ways to do so is to involve brainstorming. So I would take a sheet of paper, put it in a landscape position, put your central idea, your thesis statement in the center, and then brainstorm what you think your main points might be in light of your thesis statement and in light of your general and specific purpose. So brainstorm involves generating a list of ideas that are connected to your goals, your purposes. A best practice is to arrive at no less than 2. You can't have one main point, it doesn't work. And no more than 4 main points. If you add more than 4, you don't have sufficient time to develop it in a 5 to 7, and even in an 8 to 10 minute presentation. So 2 to 4, ideally 2 to 3. Also, if you have too many main points, you can just give surface level information and you can't give any depth. So what you are doing through this process of brainstorming is coming up with main points, transforming a random list into a focused set of idea clusters, reflecting the broad areas of your speech. Main point 1, main point 2, main point 3, main point 4. You may not number them in sequence or priority at this point, but you're starting to see. Should also remember that those areas should be mutually exclusive. Initially, you'll find out that there may be some overlap and you don't want the overlap. What you want, the main points should be distinct, mutually exclusive. They must build on each other. That's a different point. So each point must relate to and support your thesis and must show some amount of progression. After selecting your main points, use the supporting material you have gathered to strengthen each main point. Fitting each piece of research into its proper place, it's like completing a jigsaw puzzle. The patterns must be matched, rational links must be formed, and common sense must prevail. Then you've got to choose the best pattern for organizing your main points. The way you organize your main points depends on your general purpose, the specific purpose, your thesis statement, the type of material you're presenting, and the needs of your audience. And you've heard me say this again and again. It is important. As you develop your main points, consider what you want to emphasize. Assuming you have established 3 main points, choose how you will weight your main points. And there are 3 options that are possible. The equality option gives equal time to each main point. That's ideal, but it doesn't always work. The strongest point pattern requires you to spend the most time in your speech on the first point, less time on the second, and even less time on the last point of your speech. Why is that? Because most people remember what was presented at the beginning or at the end of one's presentation. The primacy effect is the belief that it is the first main point that listeners will most likely remember. The progressive pattern presents information from the least important to the most important. The recency effect is the opposite of the primacy effect. It's the belief that the last point in your speech is the one that listeners will remember. So, in addition to weighting your main points for emphasis, you should come up with an organizational pattern, a framework, an organizational framework or schema. And there are quite a few different choices, and these choices all depend on your general purpose, your specific purpose, the thesis statement, the type of material, and the audience that you're connecting with. So here they are. First, chronological organization. This is focused on time. Events are presented in the order in which they occur. So first, second, third, past, present, future. You're wanting to show that trajectory in time, or a step-by-step process, a how-to speech, how to go about the process of making something, how to build a PC, whatever it is in terms of a process speech. The spatial organization pattern is a sequence of ideas that move from one area to another. So if you want to show the layout of Paris or Rome, you can do that, that's fine. The cause and effect, the speaker focuses on why something happened and what the consequences of that event or action were. So you start off with the cause and you go to the effect. You could reverse that and start off with the effect and say, now these are the possible causes, and then come down to one particular cause. So it is possible to reverse that. Problem solution presents the audience with a problem and then examines one more or more likely solutions. You can't reverse this one and start off with a solution and present the solution to a problem that the audience doesn't know about. It doesn't make sense. And then the one that, if it doesn't fit any of the above categories, it's called a topical pattern. 3 reasons why we should legalize all drugs, why you should do this, why we should have a national health care system. That is more topical. If it doesn't fit any of the other patterns, then topical is the catch-all category. You want to create unity through connections. So there must be a certain amount of logical unity and consistency throughout your presentation, and transitions help you do that. Transitions are verbal bridges between ideas, words, phrases, or sentences that tell your audience how your ideas relate. How do they connect? And this is very important. Between the main points, those transitions must show the connection between the previous main point and the next main point. So when you think of transitions, they are verbal signposts, telling the audience where you've been and where you are going. So the textbook has internal previews and internal summaries. A preview is what's going to come next. An internal summary is what you've already spoken about. I combine the two and I call it a transitional statement. And in a transitional statement, you review the previous main point. Or if you are in your third main point, you review the previous main points, plural, and you preview the next main point. So in order to present your ideas in an organized way, you have to come up with some notes, an outline to speak from, a planning outline or a keyword outline that's going to be the basis from which you speak. And you want to use a planning outline or a keyword outline. You don't want to use a manuscript, because if you do, you'll probably read the presentation, and then that's really not public speaking. So the type of presentation you want to give is referred to as an extemporaneous presentation. And that is, you work from an outline, and you know what your ideas are. Your ideas are down there on paper, and there is sufficient content on there for you to look down, remember what you want to say, and then construct the sentence in real time. Don't look down and read the sentence, construct the sentence in real time. So the planning outline is the full content outline, includes most of the information you'll present in your speech. It doesn't include every word you plan to say. It gives you flexibility so that you can determine whether the audience is understanding your presentation or not. And it allows you to adjust and to speak in an extemporaneous fashion. That is, creating the sentences in real time rather than reading the sentences. So parallelism refers to how you construct your sentences. And you can see they need to be parallel. So you would say, for example, the textbook says, destroyed are the great redwoods that have survived over the centuries. Main point 2, vanished is the small animal life that used to grow in the great forests of our nation. So your main points need to be parallel in structure so that the audience can remember them. Coordination. Coordinate points are your main points. Yeah, I wouldn't use the word coordinate points. I would just say your main points. What they're trying to say is that your main point should be coordinate in terms of weight. That's ideal, but it's not always the case, because you may give more time to one main point versus another, okay? So they should have the same significance, but that is not a hard and fast rule, because in a persuasive speech, you may find one point to be the stronger one, and you'll spend more time on the stronger main point. Subordination refers to your subordinate points. So 1, 2, and 3 would be your main points. 1.1 and 1.2 under number 1 would be your subordinate points. Here, your subordinate points need to reflect equality. They should be coordinate, is what I mean. There should be a certain amount of coordination. Subordinate points provide relative supporting materials such as facts, statistics, examples, or testimonies. And again, remember, both in your main points and in your subordinate points, they should comprise one idea, one mutually exclusive idea, distinct from what's around it, one idea. And then division refers to how you divide your main points, and look at the pattern that I want you to use. And that is 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. And if you want to divide 1.3, it would be 1.3.1, 1.3.2, 1.3.3, okay? So avoid overloading your outline, and I'm overloading you with information right now. So don't put too much details in your outline, because you'll find yourself looking down too much. Only include necessary information to remind you of what you want to speak about. And yes, reduce your sentences to key phrases, include transitions, and then lastly, your notes must be legible. All right, that's the entire chapter. I've done it in one segment, so my apologies, 14 minutes.